What is the matchday experience like for an LGBT fan?
I think at Portman Road, it's broadly speaking, it's okay. There are little things which you can do to improve generally. I know away grounds it's a slightly different kettle of fish, but I'll focus on Portman Road because that's that's sort of where we are most of the time. It's so it's those little things that sort of niggle in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes I know the things that most people would take for granted, which you're not quite sure about whether or not you should or shouldn't. So I sometimes temper what I'm wearing and things to avoid comment. I know of friends who've gone with their partners, but they haven't done a simple thing like holding hands because they're worried about a comment might come about and so on. And those little things, which people I think a lot of the time don't think about, is where an issue lies at Portman Road. For me, once I'm in there and I'm in the moment and I'm shouting at the referee or I'm cheering that fifth goal that we've scored, then I'm in the moment and I don't think about it. And I think that's the case once you're there and you're in it and you're just a fan. There you go. It's all the little bits around it which cause potential problem. And I know that there's fewer LGBTQ plus people who go to football across the spectrum, and I think that part of that is about atmosphere. And I've heard, in the North Stand, some little comments, and they're throwaway things, like that whole playground, oh that's gay type thing. And I honestly don't think that it's sort of rampant homophobia on the part of the person saying it. I don't think they think. So when there's a chap stands near me and he'll shout abuse at opposition players and things like you do, and quite often he'll be using something which is a homophobic slur. If I confronted him about it, he'd probably go, oh, no, I didn't mean that at all. But, that, for me, standing there, do I confront? Do I not confront? But that does make me feel really uncomfortable. And that's where the problem lies, I think.
Yeah. Would you confront, do you think there's a different environment with football? Would you confront someone if it was at a place of work? But do you think because football's this sort of, it portrays a macho environment, is that why, do you think?
Yes. And it's that sort of mass group thing, isn't it? Because if you say something, then you're putting the head above the parapet. Now, I've done it on Twitter. I do it quite a lot on Twitter. I call people out. I've explained stuff to people at work. I've explained stuff to family members, because people, if you're not part of that, if you don't experience it, you don't know what it's like. But no, I almost certainly wouldn't say something at football. I'd just sort of look the other way and go, okay.
Yeah, but that's what this campaign specifically, and Rainbow Laces, which the club supports as well, and Football versus Homophobia, which we're focusing on this weekend, it's trying to eradicate that, isn't it? And
yes.
What you said at the start about the example of supporters almost can't be their authentic self. Like if they want to hold their partner's hand, you shouldn't be thinking in the back of your head, oh, well, what's the supporter behind me or on the other row going to think? It should be a game for everyone. And that's what this campaign that's their aim, isn't it?
Yes. And I mean, there was a big thing this week, wasn't there, with 800 German players signed a big statement about the whole thing. And that's the same thing, because if, like in so many things, if you see yourself represented, I mean, and a lot of football is about that, the working class game and things, and you can relate to the players and all of those things. That's why you have a favourite player. And if you haven't got any representation, you don't see yourself on the terraces or on the pitch and things, then you feel, am I welcome here? And that I think is a problem. I mean, I've been going to Portman Road for a very long time now. And those things still niggle at me, even though I've been going for 30 odd years. So I think that it is a deterrent, and we need to just sort of make people aware of those casual comments people make, to eradicate that fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was either Stonewall or the Football versus Homophobia campaign, and a recent study, I think it was still that 72% of football fans have witnessed like homophobic abuse at a game. So whether that's, as you alluded to in your earlier, you said about a lot of it was just sort of throwaway comments, but still that's a big percentage, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you were a new fan as well, and you went and you stood next to somebody who was making derogatory comments and homophobic slurs, or passing judgment because you were holding your partner's hand and things, you wouldn't go back again because you wouldn't feel welcome. You know, some people, I've experienced it in pubs, you know, and things, and in some ways you sort of, it's wrong, but you sort of expect it sometimes. You say, oh yeah, I've had that, and you talk to somebody else and they go, yeah, I've had that. And there's like you said, the 72% of people at football matches. I mean, in wider society, it's the thing, and I think football needs to lead on that, because it is being made to feel uncomfortable in an environment where you should be just there to enjoy yourself. That's wrong, and it is those little comments about somebody holding hands, or those the chants and things like that. And I mean, you used to hear them more, to be honest, at Portman Road as well. 20 years ago, there was more around then. The big side of things, I think, has improved a lot. I think it's the micro stuff that we really need to focus on a lot. And I think that the rainbow laces, the football against homophobia, all of those hopefully make people think. That's the thing, is I think so much of it is thoughtless.
Yeah, and if, like yourself, you said you've witnessed it, but you still attend because you love the club and everything. But do you know of people who have been subject to abuse, or not subject to it personally, but have heard it in the background and have gone, actually, that's not for me?
Not at Portman Road. I know of people who like football, who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, who don't go for that reason. And I also wonder how many people who are switched off from it, and part of the reason why they don't have any interest in that is because of the perception and the very macho culture which it's associated with. And so they just sort of go, no, that's not for me. And I think that's a wider issue as well. You know, it's a wonderful game. It's a beautiful thing to watch at times, frustrating at others. But you know, if it's something you expect, you don't want to put yourself into a position where you can expect to find that abuse. And that thing, so you just take yourself away from it and you go and do something different instead, and that's a big problem, I think, as well. You know, I've been going for that long, that it's not that I'm immune to it, it's just that because it's something that I hear so often, that you sort of go, there it is again. But I think that if you are, I don't know. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought there.
That's but what, you know, these are the LGBT groups, supporter groups that clubs have got, and we're looking to, you know, touching base with Rainbow Tractors and looking to reignite that and really revamp it. But ultimately, surely the long-term aim is that you don't need to have these groups, and that it's just Ipswich Town Football Club supporters, and that's it, regardless of your sexuality.
Absolutely. And I think that the supporters groups are really good in that they unite people together, and they can share experiences, and they can come together and say, you know, this is who I am, and I love football, and I love football, and I love football. And it gives you that sense of security and being able to then reach out across to other fans on social media or in pubs and things, and be your authentic self in that way. But absolutely, long term, I would love to be able to go to any ground in the country and just be who I am, dress how I want, be how I want, be with who I want, without having that sort of fear in the back of your mind about, or that niggle about, well, what happens if? How will I have to respond to this in some way, or make a decision not to respond and hide myself? So that would be ultimately the thing, where you could just be yourself wherever you were. Yes.
And what more steps need to be taken, David, for that to happen, do you think?
I think overall, the biggest thing is to have a really open dialogue, and to have people who are LGBTQ plus, or people who are supportive, just to have a quiet word, on the terraces, on social media, and say, have you thought about this? And I think that's the thing, is it's not in an aggressive sort of, oh my God, you're homophobic way, but to say, have you thought about that use of language? That's one thing. Because the vast majority, I think, is thoughtless. I don't think it's a deep-seated homophobia. On a broader level, I think that clubs and supporters, I mean, I can do more on social media. I'm quite loud and open on social media. I'm on game day, and I do all of those things. But I can probably do more, because sometimes I back off because I think people are going to get bored of me saying that. But I think that people, rather than taking a step back and going, it's him again, if you just say something, that one thing, it makes one other person think. And the clubs generally, the supporters group, Rainbow Tractors, but the club as well, both through things like the Football Against Homophobia and the Rainbow Laces, but to raise that awareness over the whole month of Pride or Football and Homophobia, to have a banner, to on social media, to change the club's badge so it's got the rainbows in it, and people will then engage and go, why has that happened? It'll make them think, and little bits like that get out, and it changes things over time. You think back to the time of It's a Sin, and what was on television recently, at the time in the 1980s to now, which is not that far away. Being 50, I tend to think the 1980s is about 5 years ago, but it's not. But it's the change in atmosphere at football grounds for homophobia, for racism, for things, has changed exponentially over that time. In society, we've moved on, and we've got a lot to do, but it comes through discussion, and it comes through listening, and it comes through reaching out and explaining things to people, because I think a lot of people, if you're not experiencing it, you don't realise how it feels. It's like I go back to the playground thing. It's a throwaway thing saying, oh, that's gay. But if you are gay and you're closeted and you're young, then that's you being denigrated each time. Yeah. If you're standing on the terraces and you're out in all of these things, but it's not relevant to be out on the terraces in that way, and somebody's making a derogatory comment and things, that's hitting to you, because although it's a throwaway comment against the opposition's fullback, it's actually directed at you standing next to that person. And I don't think a lot of people think it that way. They're just throwing something out in the heat of the moment. And I think that's it, by really having a high profile on these events, through Pride, through Football and Homophobia, Rainbow Laces, and creating that dialogue, clubs can go a long way to raising that awareness that we should all be Ipswich Town fans, and there shouldn't be any difference in our matchday experience.